Hey everyone, ready to tackle those long distance challenges?
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's for love or work or family, we're diving deep into how conflict plays out when you're miles apart.
Always tricky.
We've got this podcast episode script all about navigating conflict in long distance romantic relationships.
Okay.
And you know what's cool?
Like that.
Even though it focuses on romance, the stuff in here, surprisingly relevant to any long distance situation.
Absolutely.
Like, think about it, distance just makes everything louder, doesn't it?
It does, those disagreements. They feel way more intense when you're not face to face.
Exactly. And this script really zeroes in on awareness, which I think is so key.
Could agree more. Being mindful of how distance impacts the way we communicate. That's huge.
It is. And the script starts with this story about a couple arguing over when they might finally be able to close the distance.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Right. Those conversations can get
Heated.
heated is an understatement. Anyone who's been there knows exactly what I mean. It makes me think about how just not being physically present can really throw a wrench into things.
It totally does.
Right.
You know, we're wired to read body language, facial expressions, all that.
Right.
But long distance, it takes all those keys away.
Oof. Gone.
And so we end up filling in those gaps,
Yeah.
assumptions, which is where things can go off the rails.
Oh, 100%. The script even mentions this expert interview where they talk about feeling more isolated
Makes sense?
and misinterpreting messages, because you're not actually seeing the person.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh, this happened to me last week.
Oh, tell me.
So my friend moved across the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I got this super short text from her,
Okay.
and I was convinced she was mad at me.
Oh, no.
I'm talking full-on overthinking spiral.
In there.
Turns out she was just typing one-handed while chasing her toddler.
Oh, bless.
It's so easy to let your mind run wild when you don't have the full picture.
It really is. That's that invisible force the script talks about, you know?
What do you mean?
We project all our anxieties onto these digital interactions, especially when we're already feeling kind of disconnected.
So it's like distance plus our own worries equals a recipe for misunderstanding.
Pretty much. So for you, for anyone listening, just being aware of that dynamic, that's a big step.
Makes total sense. Okay, the script also digs into communication styles
Oh, yeah.
and how those differences can really cause friction.
For sure. And this goes way beyond just like if someone's a fast talker or a slow talker.
Right, it's deeper than that.
It's about those subtle preferences, you know?
know?
Like, are they a diehard text person, or do they need to hear your voice?
Ooh, good one.
Are they super expressive with their emotions, or more like keep it all inside?
Those are huge differences.
They are. And the script even suggests like choosing the right communication tool depending on the situation.
That's interesting.
Right. Like if you're having a serious conversation, maybe skip the texting and go for a video call so you can actually see each other.
Makes those nonverbal cues a little less invisible.
Exactly. It's all about minimizing the chances for things getting lost in translation.
I feel like we've all been there.
Oh, yeah.
The script gives this funny example about how a simple okay text can be interpreted in like a million ways. Ugh, the dreaded okay.
Right. Tone is everything, and text just can't convey that reliably.
Oh, have I been on the receiving end of those ambiguous okay texts? And let me tell you,
I bet.
rabbit hole of overthinking, central station.
It happens to the best of us.
This is making me think, like, what's my go-to communication style and how might it clash with the people I'm trying to connect with long distance?
Such a good question. Because when those styles clash, that's often where conflict takes root.
It's like trying to fit those square blocks into the round holes just doesn't work.
Exactly. You need the right shapes.
Okay, switching gears a bit.
Sure.
Another thing I'm curious about is boundaries.
Boundaries are huge, especially in long distance.
They feel even more important,
They are. And what I find interesting is how the script encourages us to think about boundaries as more than just physical distance.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It's about expectations, about needs, about what you're comfortable with emotionally, even when you're miles apart.
So, like, what are some specific examples?
Well, they talk about setting a communication frequency that works for both people.
Like how often you're going to talk.
Exactly. Maybe it's daily check-in texts, but then longer phone calls are reserved for the weekends.
I like that it creates some predictability without feeling like you're constantly on call.
Right. And then there's respecting solo time, especially when things are stressful.
Ah, that's important.
Just because someone's physically far away doesn't mean they're always emotionally available.
So true.
You need that space to recharge.
And I love how the script quotes this therapist saying that healthy boundaries actually prevent resentment.
Such a good point.
Think about it. Have you ever felt resentful because you felt like you were constantly on call, even when you just craved some alone
Oh,
time?
all the time.
Right. That's where those clear boundaries come in, even in long distance situations.
They protect everyone's needs.
So resentment doesn't have a chance to build up.
And this is key. Whether it's your partner, your boss, even a family member you're dealing with from afar.
Anyone, really.
Mm.
Okay, so we've got those invisible forces of missing nonverbal cues, the potential for clashing communication styles, and the need for healthy boundaries.
Lots to think about.
What else does the script highlight when it comes to actually working through conflict in those long distance situations?
Well, it dives into some practical steps for conflict resolution. And the first one is really simple, but can be surprisingly tough.
Okay, lay it on me.
Take a pause.
Sometimes easier said than done, but I'm guessing there's a good reason for this.
Oh yeah, there is. The script explains that pausing before you react, especially when emotions are running high, can prevent those impulsive responses that just escalate things.
Oh, that makes sense. I know I've sent some texts I wish I could take back.
We've all been there. Think of it as hitting the pause button on an argument before it spirals out of control.
Love that analogy. It's so easy to just fire off a text you later regret, but taking a breath, stepping away from the screen for a bit can make all the difference.
It really can. And then the script pairs that pause with another powerful tool using I statements.
Oh, yeah. I remember learning about those back in the day. But why are they so important in a long distance context?
Because I statements help cut through the potential for misinterpretation. Instead of saying, you always do X, which can sound so accusatory over text,
Oh, yeah, especially over text.
try, I feel hurt when X happens. It keeps the focus on your experience, which is much harder to misinterpret.
Good point. It's like taking the emphasis off blame and putting it on understanding each other's feelings.
Exactly. And the script even quotes a conflict resolution specialist who says that empathy can turn a potential explosion into a productive dialogue.
Ooh, I like that. So we've paused, we've used our I statements, and hopefully de-escalated the situation. What's next in this conflict resolution process?
Well, according to the script, it's time to move from expressing feelings to finding solutions, but with the collaborative approach.
So it's not about one person winning the argument.
Not at all. It's about working together to find a solution that works for both people. Remember, you're on the same team, even if it doesn't feel like it in the heat of the moment. And remember, you're hundreds or even thousands of miles apart. So approach these conversations with that in mind.
That's a really good reminder. I can see how this applies to so many different scenarios beyond romance.
Oh, definitely.
Like if you're having a disagreement with a colleague on a project you're collaborating on remotely,
Yeah.
it's not about proving who's right or wrong. It's about finding a way forward that works for everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The script even suggests revisiting the conflict later on once things have settled to make sure both people feel good about the outcome.
That's smart, because sometimes those initial solutions are just band-aids. It takes time to process everything and see if the issue is truly resolved.
Exactly. It's about being proactive and ensuring that resentment doesn't build up over time, which, as we know, can be a real danger in any long-distance dynamic.
This has been so insightful already, but we've covered a lot of ground and we're just getting started.
I know, right? And we're back, still digging into those long-distance conflicts.
They're a whole different beast, aren't they?
They really are. Hearing about these strategies makes me think back to that story from the script.
The couple arguing about their future.
Yeah, distance can really turn up the volume on those emotions, huh?
It's like those conversations are happening on a bigger stage with a louder microphone.
That's a great way to put it. And sometimes you just need a little extra help to navigate all that.
Like a life raft in a stormy sea.
Exactly. That's where the script's emphasis on seeking support really resonated with me.
It makes sense, right? It's not a weakness to ask for help, especially with all the extra challenges that come with distance.
Not at all. It's about recognizing when you need some guidance, some extra tools to deal with all those complicated emotions.
So what kind of support are we talking about here?
Well, the script specifically mentions couples counseling,
Ah, makes sense.
even if it has to be virtual. A skilled therapist can help couples develop those communication and conflict resolution skills.
Which are essential for any relationship, but especially when you're dealing with distance.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Because even with the best intentions, it's easy to fall into negative patterns.
Especially when you're juggling time zones and busy schedules.
Right. Sometimes you need that outside perspective to help you break free from those unhealthy cycles.
Someone to point out the things you might not be seeing.
Precisely. The script also highlights those long-distance relationship support groups.
Oh, interesting.
There's something so powerful about connecting with others who really get it.
Who understand those unique joys and challenges of maintaining a relationship across the miles.
Exactly. It's like having a whole team of cheerleaders and experienced guides.
Who've been there, done that.
Exactly. They can offer tips and strategies based on what they've learned.
That sense of community can make such a difference.
It can. And the script quotes a counselor who specializes in long-distance relationships.
Okay.
And they emphasize how those support systems, whether professional or peer-based, can provide that safe space to explore deeper issues.
The stuff that might be fueling the conflicts.
Exactly. It's not just about putting Band-Aids on surface-level disagreements.
It's about getting to the root of what's causing tension.
Right. Okay, so let's do a little recap of what we've learned from this script so far.
Love a good recap.
We talked about those invisible forces at play.
Missing those nonverbal cues.
Right. The importance of understanding different communication styles and the need for healthy boundaries to prevent resentment.
All those things can really make or break a long-distance situation.
They really can.
Yeah.
We've also covered those practical steps for resolving conflicts calmly.
Using those I statements, taking a pause, finding solutions together.
And of course, we emphasize seeking support when needed.
Whether it's from a therapist, a support group, or even a trusted friend.
Anyone who can offer a listening ear and a fresh perspective.
This is all fantastic information, but how does it apply to our listener?
You know, the one who might be gearing up for their own long-distance adventure?
Whether it's for work, love, or keeping those family ties strong across the miles.
Well, the beauty of these insights is that they apply across the board.
It's true. Distance has this way of intensifying everything, doesn't it?
It does. Whether it's the joy of reuniting after time apart,
Or the frustration of a miscommunication.
it's like distance acts as this magnifying glass.
Bringing both the good and the bad into sharper focus.
Exactly. And if we connect all of this back to that story about the couple navigating their future plans,
It all starts to click into place, doesn't it?
it does. We can see how the lack of physical presence might have fueled their anxieties,
How their communication styles might have clashed.
and maybe even how some unspoken boundaries contributed to the tension.
It's like we're getting this behind-the-scenes look at the dynamics at play.
And most importantly, we now have this toolkit of strategies,
To approach those tough conversations with more awareness.
more empathy, and that collaborative spirit.
Because at the end of the day, long distance doesn't have to mean long distance from healthy communication and strong relationships.
I love that. It just takes a little extra effort, a little more intentionality.
And a willingness to adapt the way we communicate.
Well said. And that brings us to a key takeaway I hope our listener is absorbing. Distance doesn't change the fundamentals of good communication and healthy relationships.
It's like we're not learning a whole new language, right?
Right.
We're just adjusting our dialect to make sure we're heard clearly across those miles.
Precisely.
Yeah.
We still need those open lines of communication, clear boundaries, and those shared values of respect and empathy.
Those are non-negotiables.
They are. But what distance does is amplify the need for those things.
It's like shining a spotlight on the areas where we might need to step up our game a little bit.
Exactly. Be a little more intentional, a little more mindful, and a little more proactive.
Love that analogy. So it's not about reinventing the wheel. It's about fine-tuning those communication skills to work in this unique long-distance environment.
Exactly. And with the insights we've gleaned from this script, our listeners are well equipped to do just that.
They've got this.
They do. But before we wrap up, there's one more point I want to highlight.
Oh, I'm all ears. One more point. I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, the script ends on this idea of making proactive changes, and it got me thinking about our listener and what they're taking away from all this.
I mean, it's been a gold mine of information, right? All these tips and strategies for navigating long distance.
Totally. But here's the thing. It's not enough to just know this stuff,
You got to actually do something with it.
Exactly. It's about action, not just information. So I'm curious, what's one change you can make, like today,
Today. Okay.
to improve your long-distance communication, even just a small tweak?
Ooh, I like that. It doesn't have to be this huge, overwhelming overhaul.
Nope. Just something small.
Maybe it's finally having that conversation with your partner about communication styles.
Here you go.
Or setting a recurring reminder to check in with that friend who moved across the country. Be more intentional about it.
Love it.
Or even just consciously trying to use more I statements in my text.
Easy peasy.
Small changes, big impact.
Exactly. Because as we've seen in this whole deep dive, Even those little adjustments,
They can make a world of difference.
they can when it comes to bridging that distance and building those stronger, more resilient connections.
Well, I don't know about you, but I am feeling way more equipped to handle my own long-distance situations now.
Me too, all thanks to this script.
So much good stuff in there. And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this depth dive.
Until next time.
Happy communicating.